Why I regret moving into a nursing home. 6 hard truths you must know. Stoicism. At 75, I thought I had made a smart, well-planned decision. Moving into a nursing home seemed like the logical step, a place where I'd have security, care, and a sense of community. My family reassured me, telling me it was the best choice for my well-being. I trusted them, but reality hit me hard. What I expected and what I experienced were 2 entirely different things. If you're watching, chances are you or someone you love is considering this path. Maybe you think it's the safest, most responsible choice. Maybe you've been told it will bring peace of mind and a better quality of life. But before you make that decision, let me share with you 6 hard truths I wish I had known before stepping into this world. Because modern Stoicism teaches us to question, to prepare, and to truly understand the consequences of our choices before we make them. And the truth is, once you enter a nursing home, everything changes. Your freedom, your sense of self, and even your relationships. Some of these lessons might shock you, and if you know someone who's thinking about taking this step, they need to hear this. Stay with me until the end as I reveal the Stoic secrets that could change the way you look at this decision forever. This is Stoic in Your Life. Let's get started. Why I regret moving into a nursing home. Number 1. Losing my independence. Listen to me. Have you ever thought about how losing control over your own life could be one of the hardest things you'll ever face? When I moved into a nursing home, I didn't just leave behind my house. I had to surrender my ability to make even the smallest decisions about my day. Before, I had the freedom to wake up when I wanted, eat when I was hungry, take a walk whenever I felt like it, or just sit quietly with a book and reflect on life. But the moment I stepped through the doors of that facility, everything changed. My life was placed on a strict schedule. Meal times were set, whether I was hungry or not. The lights were turned off at a designated hour, even if I wasn't ready to sleep. At first, I thought these were just minor adjustments, but soon, I realized that every small restriction was a piece of my independence slipping away. I remember one morning, all I wanted was to start my day by sitting in my favorite chair and reading. But then I realized I couldn't. I had to wait for a caregiver to help me get dressed, to assist me with basic tasks before I was even allowed to leave my room. That moment hit me hard. I felt small, like a shadow of who I used to be. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But what happens when you lose control over even the most basic aspects of your life? Can you really maintain inner peace when your entire routine is dictated by someone else? That's a question I had to wrestle with. Modern Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's within our control, but when nearly every decision about your day is made for you, how do you apply that philosophy? I tried to adapt. I tried to tell myself that these changes didn't matter, that I could still find contentment. But the truth was, with every passing day, I felt myself fading. One of the core principles of modern Stoicism is to focus only on what you can control. But when you're in a place where almost nothing is under your control, that becomes a real challenge. Have you ever asked yourself what truly defines you? Is it the choices you make or your ability to accept the circumstances you're given? When I entered the nursing home, I thought I was simply accepting my fate, just as Epictetus taught. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was letting my life slip away. I had always been independent, always strong, and now I was waiting for someone to help me, waiting for mealtime, waiting for bedtime. And in all that waiting, I felt myself becoming someone I no longer recognized. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." I knew that the real battle wasn't against my circumstances, it was against my own mindset. I could choose to feel trapped, or I could choose to find peace in the few things still within my power, my thoughts, my attitude, my perspective. But can you truly hold on to your inner freedom in a place like this? I've asked myself that question many times, and the answer isn't easy. I've learned that freedom isn't just about making choices, it's about not letting circumstances strip away who you are. So, if you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up control over your own life? Are you prepared to live according to someone else's rules? Or will you find a way to hold on to who you are, even when everything feels out of your hands? Modern Stoicism teaches us to accept reality while still seeking mastery over ourselves. I've learned this lesson the hard way by losing my independence. But if you still have a choice, think carefully. Because once your freedom is gone, you'll feel a loss that nothing else can truly replace. Number 2, feeling forgotten. The emotional toll of living in a nursing home was profound, especially the overwhelming sense of being forgotten by the very people I once considered an essential part of my life. When I first moved in, my family visited often and I felt connected to the outside world. My daughter came every week and my grandchildren stopped by on weekends, but as time passed, their visits became less frequent. At first, I told myself they were just busy, but as the months went by, I started to realize I was slowly being left behind. Phone calls replaced face-to-face visits, and even those calls became fewer and farther between. Holidays, once filled with family gatherings, became just another day. Everyone promised they would visit, but plans often fell through, leaving me sitting alone in the common room, watching other residents do the same. It wasn't because they didn't love me. It was just that life kept moving forward for them, just as it had for me before I moved here. Loneliness became a constant companion, and I found myself wondering if I would ever feel as important to my family as I once did. I saw the same pattern among other residents, all of us quietly hoping for a visit that didn't always come. It was a harsh reminder that once you're no longer part of the daily hustle of family life, you begin to fade from their everyday thoughts. Marcus Aurelius once said, "We shall soon be forgotten. Remember that when you act." And I felt that truth in the most painful way possible. But instead of drowning in self-pity, I asked myself, if this is the reality, what can I do to find meaning again? Perhaps now was the time to practice the Stoic secrets I had overlooked during my younger years. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control what happens to us, we can control how we respond. I couldn't force people to remember me, but I could control how I faced this solitude. Instead of counting the days until my next visit, I started focusing on what I could do. Reading, journaling, talking to those around me, people who were also struggling with the feeling of being forgotten. I realized that the meaning of life isn't found in whether others remember us, but in what we continue to contribute even in the smallest ways. A kind word, a shared smile, a moment of connection. I had allowed my fear of being abandoned to consume me instead of recognizing that life is ever-changing. I remembered my younger days when work, responsibilities, and the rush of life made me forget to call my own parents as often as I should have. Now I can't blame my family for doing what I had once done myself. It wasn't a lack of love, it was simply the nature of time, pulling everyone forward in its relentless current. And rather than resist the inevitable, I chose to embrace it. One of the Stoic secrets that has stayed with me is this: you cannot control what is beyond your reach, but you can always control your thoughts and actions. If you're reading this and feeling like you too are being forgotten, know that you're not alone in that feeling, but you can turn loneliness into a source of strength, an opportunity to know yourself better, to find joy in the small things within your control. Don't let being forgotten define your worth. You are still you, still capable of creating meaning in every moment you have left. Live in a way that, when your final day comes, you can smile and say, I lived a life that mattered, whether anyone remembers me or not. Number 3. Losing my sense of purpose. Losing one's sense of purpose after moving into a nursing home is a reality that few consider until they are faced with it. Before I made the transition, my life was full of responsibilities, small but meaningful tasks that gave structure to my days. I took pride in maintaining my home, cooking meals, and tending to my garden, each action a testament to my independence. These weren't just chores. They were affirmations of my ability to contribute, to shape my environment, to create beauty and order in my own small way. But once in the nursing home, all of that was stripped away. Meals were prepared for me, the cleaning was taken care of by staff, and my once beloved garden was replaced by a sterile common room. At first, it felt like a relief, an earned rest after years of self-sufficiency. But relief quickly turned to emptiness. My days stretched before me, unstructured and passive, and I found myself waiting for meals, for visitors, for something, anything to give my life the sense of engagement it once had. This loss of purpose gnawed at me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And my thoughts, devoid of purpose, began to turn dark. I was no longer contributing to anything. I was merely existing. Many around me seemed to share this quiet suffering, sitting idly in common areas, watching television they didn't care for, speaking of nothing in particular, simply filling time, without tasks, without responsibilities, without something to strive for. I began to feel like I had lost a part of myself. My sense of identity had always been tied to action, to doing, to creating. And now, that part of me was fading. Seneca, in his letters, advised that life is long if you know how to use it. But how do you use life when all meaningful action is taken from you? How do you fill your days when the world no longer expects anything of you? In modern Stoicism, we talk about the importance of focusing on what we can control, of not allowing external circumstances to dictate our inner peace. But this experience tested that philosophy in ways I had never expected. I could no longer control my surroundings as I once had, but I could control my response. Instead of succumbing to purposelessness, I began to carve out meaning where I could. I engaged in conversations, I read voraciously, I found small ways to be of service to those around me, offering a listening ear, a comforting word, a shared moment of laughter. The truth is, modern Stoicism teaches us that our purpose is not something dictated by circumstances, but by our own perspective. Purpose is not found in the size of our responsibilities, but in the meaning we assign to our actions. I regret moving into a nursing home because I had to learn this the hard way, but perhaps regret is also a teacher. If you find yourself in a similar situation, whether through aging, retirement, or a life change that strips away what once gave you meaning, remember that purpose is not lost. It is only waiting for you to redefine it. Do not wait for meaning to be handed back to you. Go out and create it, even in the smallest of ways. If you've made it this far, you are truly seeking someone wisdom and a deeper understanding of life's meaning. Now, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment saying, "Purpose is a choice, not a circumstance." Or share your own reflection on how you found purpose in difficult times. Your journey of self-discovery and growth is only beginning. Stay with us as we continue to explore the power of modern Stoicism and the resilience of the human spirit. Let's build a community that embraces Stoic secrets to lead a life of meaning, no matter the circumstances. Number 4. Declining health faster than expected. When I first moved into the nursing home, I believed I was making a sensible choice, a decision that would grant me security, ease, and the company of others in my golden years. At first, everything seemed fine. I no longer had to worry about cooking meals, cleaning, or even managing the small inconveniences of daily life. It felt like a relief, like I had earned this rest. But over time, a realization crept in like a shadow in the night. My body, once sturdy and independent, was growing frail far more quickly than I had anticipated. At home, I had my routines. I stretched every morning, I took long walks, I cooked meals with my own hands. These simple acts kept me engaged, moving, and feeling alive. But here, in this place of supposed comfort, I stopped. Not intentionally, just slowly over time, as assistance was always there, making effort seem unnecessary. I watched my muscles weaken, my legs stiffen, my once strong hands struggle with simple tasks. And it wasn't just me. I saw it in others. People who had arrived as vibrant, independent individuals, slowly surrendering to the ease of dependence. One day, I found myself hesitating before standing up from a chair, something I once did, without a second thought. That moment of struggle was like a warning bell in my mind. How had I come to this? It wasn't illness that had taken my strength, it was inaction. It was the comfort of having everything done for me, stripping me of the will and ability to do for myself. I had unknowingly walked into a trap disguised as convenience. A modern story that comes to mind is that of a man named Paul. He was an avid cyclist in his 60s, always on the move, always embracing the challenge of physical activity. Then, after a small accident, his children convinced him to move into an assisted living facility for safety. He agreed, thinking it would be temporary. But as weeks turned into months, he cycled less, walked shorter distances, and then, one day, he stopped altogether. He told himself he was just taking a break, but in reality, he was slowly surrendering to the environment around him. 1 year later, when he finally tried to get back on a bike, he found that his legs no longer had the strength. He had lost what he once took for granted, not because of age, but because of inaction. His story is not unique. It is the silent danger of a life that becomes too easy. So, I ask you, what does this mean for you? What do you rely on that you could still do for yourself? Have you too unknowingly surrendered small freedoms in the name of comfort? Stoicism teaches us that our strength lies not in avoiding discomfort, but in embracing the discipline of self-reliance. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Dwell on the beauty of life, watch the stars, and see yourself running with them." Life is movement, action, and engagement with the world. To sit still is to allow decline. The greatest Stoic secrets are not just in enduring hardship, but in ensuring that comfort does not become your captor. The hard truth is this: a life without challenge, without effort, is not a life of ease. It is a life of slow surrender. Strength fades when unused, independence dissolves when relinquished, and life loses its vibrancy when we stop engaging with it. If I could go back, I would fight harder to keep moving, to keep doing, to resist the slow decay that comes with dependence. And so I urge you, stand up, move, embrace the effort. Do not let ease become your undoing. Your life is still yours to live, and the strongest among us are not those who are carried, but those who continue to walk, no matter how difficult the path. Number 5. The loss of privacy and dignity. I never thought I'd regret moving into a nursing home. It seemed like the right choice: safety, medical care, and social interaction. But I wasn't prepared for the slow erosion of something more fundamental: my privacy and dignity. At home, I had control over my life. I chose when to rest, when to shower, how to spend my time. Now every moment is scheduled, monitored, dictated by routines I didn't set. Staff enter my room unannounced, check on me like I can't make decisions, and even the most personal acts, dressing, using the bathroom, require assistance. Imagine having to ask permission to shower, then waiting for help. If you've always been independent, this loss is crushing. When every decision is stripped away and reduced to a process dictated by someone else, modern Stoicism teaches us to accept what we can't control. But is it possible to accept the loss of autonomy without losing yourself? I remember the first time I had to ask for help getting dressed. The nurse was kind, but I felt humiliated. I had dressed myself for decades. Why was this moment different? Seneca reminds us, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." But what if what I crave isn't more? It's simply the dignity of choosing when and how I live. Dignity. What a strange thing to feel slipping away. When you live in a place where your space is invaded, your choices are limited, and your time is no longer your own, the sense of self begins to fade. The walls don't confine me, but the lack of agency does. Modern Stoicism tells us to focus on what's within our control. But what if the only thing I control now is my attitude? Epictetus, once a slave, said, "Man is disturbed not by things, but by the view he takes of them." I remind myself of this daily. I try to believe that dignity isn't in what I can do, but in how I carry myself. But let's be honest, acceptance is easier said than done. When forced into dependency, how do you stay strong? How do you reconcile with the fact that you're no longer the person you once were? I ask myself that question every day. Losing privacy is one thing, but losing control over my life is deeper. Do we ever truly appreciate our independence until it's gone? Have you considered what it would feel like if every action, every decision, had to go through someone else? I never thought I'd face that question, yet here I am. Modern Stoicism teaches that suffering comes from resisting reality. But does that mean I should surrender to this existence? Or should I fight in small ways to reclaim moments of autonomy? Maybe dignity isn't just about what I do, but how I respond. Maybe true strength isn't in resisting change, but in adapting with grace. So I ask you, what does dignity mean to you? Is it independence, freedom, or something deeper, something no one can take away? I regret moving into a nursing home, but maybe this is just another lesson in life. Perhaps dignity, like strength, isn't about what happens to us, but who we choose to be in response. Number 6, realizing it's harder to leave than you think. When I first moved into the nursing home, I reassured myself that it was only temporary, a brief stop on the journey before I could return to the home I had lived in for years. But I soon learned a painful truth. Leaving was far harder than I had imagined. My house, my sanctuary, was no longer mine. My children had decided to sell it, removing the option I had clung to as my safety net. They rearranged my belongings, convinced that staying in the nursing home was the best choice for me. And so, the illusion of control slipped away. I hadn't realized how difficult it would be to leave until the moment I tried. My health had declined, and as the days turned into months, the idea of reclaiming independence became more daunting. It wasn't just my physical limitations that held me back. Emotionally, I had become anchored to this place. The routine, the predictability, the slow acceptance that this was now my life, all of it conspired against my initial resolve. When I brought up the idea of returning home, my children hesitated, and in their pause I saw the unspoken truth. This was not just about my ability to leave, but about their fear of letting me go. They had already made peace with my presence here, woven it into their own lives, making it less about my needs and more about their comfort. The helplessness, the gradual erosion of choice, the realization that once you step into this world, it is designed to hold on to you. Nursing homes are not prisons, but they operate on a similar principle. Once you are inside, the exit is neither easy nor encouraged. The medical care, the dependency, the subtle reinforcement that you belong here, all of it builds a wall higher than any physical barrier. I wish I had understood this before I moved in, that the decision is often irreversible, not because someone forces you to stay, but because everything around you conspires to make you feel as though leaving is no longer an option. My independence was not taken in one dramatic moment, but eroded slowly, until the thought of reclaiming it felt like a distant dream. If you are considering this path, remember the Stoic wisdom that urges you to question not just the immediate comfort but the long-term consequence. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way, Marcus Aurelius wrote. But what if the impediment is not a challenge to overcome, but a quiet, relentless settling into a reality you never intended? If I could offer one piece of advice, it would be this. Make your choices while you still can, guard your autonomy fiercely, and never assume that what is temporary will remain so. Because once you cross this threshold, returning is far more difficult than you can ever anticipate. And so, I sit here, reflecting on my past decisions, realizing that the hardest truth of all is not just that I regret moving into a nursing home, but that I regret not realizing sooner how final the decision would be. Let this be your lesson, so that you may choose with wisdom what I chose in haste. The Stoic secrets of control and acceptance are valuable, but they cannot change the past, only the choices you have yet to make. You've made it this far into the video, and for that, I want to congratulate you. Not just for watching, but for actively seeking wisdom and taking control of your future decisions. This journey isn't just about learning, it's about applying modern Stoicism to real-life challenges. And now, I humbly ask for your help. Leaving a comment below supports this channel more than you might think, and it allows others to share their thoughts and experiences. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "Freedom is harder than it seems." That way I'll know you've made it here. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights on Stoic secrets that can help you navigate life's toughest choices. Now let's continue. Looking back, moving into a nursing home wasn't just a change of address, it was a life-altering shift that deeply affected my independence, well-being, and sense of purpose. The things I once took for granted, freedom, connection, and meaning, were challenged in ways I never expected. But if there's one thing Stoicism has taught me, it's that while we can't control our circumstances, we can always control how we respond to them. Through regret, I've come to realize the importance of preparing for aging, not just financially, but mentally and socially as well. Beyond regret, smarter aging choices. Regret isn't the end of the story. It's a sign that it's time to reassess and make better choices. If you're thinking about your future or that of a loved one, let these hard lessons be a warning, but also a motivation to explore smarter alternatives. Aging doesn't have to be something we fear. With the right approach, it can be a fulfilling and meaningful chapter of life. Stick around. You won't want to miss these life-changing insights. Number 1. Preparing for change. Transitioning into a nursing home is more than just a physical move. It's an emotional shift that few are truly prepared for. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. The loss of independence, the rigid routines, and the absence of small freedoms hit me harder than expected. As Seneca said, "A great part of happiness depends on our disposition, not our circumstances." I wish I had embraced this wisdom earlier. The question is, are you truly ready to let go of your autonomy? Or is there a way to hold on to it a little longer? One of the first realities I faced was the lack of control over daily life. I had always decided when to wake up, what to eat, where to go, but now my schedule was dictated by others. Adjusting expectations is key to maintaining peace, yet it doesn't erase the frustration. If you're not comfortable surrendering control, you might struggle as I did. Then there's the social aspect, or the lack of it. I had imagined a close-knit community, but I found isolation instead. Conversations felt repetitive, and many residents seemed lost in their own struggles. Epictetus taught, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." I had to push myself to engage with others, but loneliness remained a challenge. If you don't actively seek connection, isolation can become your daily reality. Another harsh truth: the quality of care varies. Some staff are compassionate while others are indifferent. You are one of many, and no facility can replace the warmth of family. Seneca warned, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Worrying about neglect can sometimes feel worse than the reality of it. Still, if you need constant attention, be sure the facility you choose has staff who genuinely care. Perhaps the hardest lesson was realizing that life outside the nursing home moves on without you. I had assumed family would visit often, that I would remain central in their lives. But work, distance, and obligations took precedence. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now, take what's left and live it properly." It's a stark truth, but an important one. Longing for the past only breeds suffering. The final truth is acceptance. You can resist and be miserable, or you can embrace reality and find peace. This is the essence of modern Stoicism, accepting what you cannot change while controlling how you experience it. Some days I struggle with regret. If you're considering a nursing home, think carefully. Are you truly ready to give up the freedoms you've cherished for a lifetime? Can you handle the emotional, mental, and social challenges? Modern Stoicism teaches us to face life's trials with resilience and grace, preparing for the inevitable while making peace with what we cannot control. If you must take this path, do so with open eyes. But if you still have the strength to explore other options, cherish your independence while you can. Because once it's gone, you might, like me, wish you had held on to it just a little longer. Number 2. Exploring alternatives. Moving into a nursing home felt like the right decision at first, but reality quickly shattered my expectations. What truly matters as we age? Comfort, dignity, and autonomy, things I never thought I'd lose, until they were gone. If I had known the hard truths earlier, I would have chosen differently. I regret not exploring alternatives because, in the end, I traded independence for a structured existence that felt more like a waiting room than a home. One of the hardest realizations was losing my freedom. Nursing homes provide care, but they also take away the little choices that make life feel like your own. A walk outside needs approval, meals are scheduled, and privacy is minimal. Even spontaneity is regulated. I remember William, a retired principal who moved in after his wife passed. He was sharp, full of stories. Within months, he faded. "It's not the care," he told me. "It's the feeling of being managed instead of living." That hit me hard. Loneliness was another unexpected burden. You assume you'll make friends, but connections are fleeting. People come and go, sometimes suddenly. The bonds you form are overshadowed by the reality of aging. In-home care or assisted living might offer stronger, lasting relationships, but in a nursing home, the silence lingers. I often sat by the window, watching life move on without me, feeling more like an observer than a participant. Another painful truth is the illusion of choice. Everything is scheduled for efficiency, not personal preference. I used to start my mornings with coffee on my porch, enjoying the sunrise. Here, breakfast happens at a set time, whether you're ready or not. I never realized how much joy came from small freedoms until they were gone. Financially, nursing homes are a heavy burden, and high costs don't always mean quality care. A friend saved for years, only to find her facility lacking the comfort and attention she expected. She often wondered if in-home care would have been the better choice. The problem is, most people don't think about alternatives until it's too late. Safety is another overlooked issue. While nursing homes seem secure, understaffing is common, and mistakes happen more than you'd expect. I once saw a neighbor press their emergency button and wait nearly an hour for help. The staff wasn't negligent, they were just overwhelmed. It's not about blaming caregivers. It's about acknowledging the system's limitations. The emotional toll might be the hardest part. Losing my sense of purpose was devastating. Before, I had responsibilities, hobbies, and a role in my community. Here, days blend together. Our friend's mother, once vibrant and engaged, entered a nursing home expecting a temporary stay. Within months, she stopped reading, stopped painting, and withdrew completely. When I asked why, she simply said, "What's the point?" So what's the lesson? Nursing homes aren't inherently bad, they serve those who truly need them. But before making the move, consider the alternatives. Could in-home care preserve your independence longer? Would an assisted living community provide a better balance of care and freedom? Don't wait until you have no choice. Plan while you still do. The Stoic secrets to aging well lie in preparation and mindset. Aging is inevitable, but how you navigate it is up to you. Choose wisely, and don't let fear or convenience make the decision for you. Number 3, maintaining independence in assisted living. When you think about moving into a nursing home, the first thing that might come to mind is safety and care. But have you ever stopped to consider what happens to your sense of independence? I wish I had. If I could turn back time, I would have done things differently, explored my options more carefully, and understood that independence is not something you want to let go of too easily, because once it's gone, regaining it is nearly impossible. The moment you step into a nursing home, you surrender control over the smallest details of your life. When you eat, when you sleep, even when you go outside, and while that structure is meant to provide security, it often comes at the cost of your personal freedom. But what happens when even your own daily decisions are no longer yours to make? What happens when the ability to choose, something we take for granted, is stripped away from you? I didn't fully understand what that meant until it was too late. I remember touring assisted living facilities before making my decision. Some of them offered greater independence, allowing residents to structure their own days, make choices about their meals, and even come and go as they pleased within reason. But at the time I dismissed those options. I thought, why does it matter if I have to follow a schedule? I convinced myself that as long as I had people around me to help, I would be fine. I was wrong. What I didn't realize was that the small freedoms we overlook in daily life, the choice to take a walk when we want, to eat when we're actually hungry, to turn the lights off when we feel like it, are the very things that make us feel alive. They keep our minds engaged and remind us that we are still in control, even in the later years of our lives. And once you enter a facility that prioritizes structure over autonomy, you begin to feel like a passive observer in your own existence. You wake up to an agenda that isn't yours, you move through a day planned by others, and eventually you stop questioning it. And that's the most dangerous part, because once you stop questioning, you start fading. Modern Stoicism teaches us that we must differentiate between what we can control and what we cannot. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." But how do you hold on to your inner freedom when your external world is dictated by a rigid system? How do you maintain a sense of self when your choices are limited to what is allowed rather than what you truly desire? That's the question I struggled with every day. Looking back, I wish I had explored the assisted living options that encouraged independence more seriously. Because in those environments there was a balance, care when needed, but autonomy whenever possible. Instead of feeling like a patient, you felt like a person. That distinction is everything. If you're considering assisted living, I urge you, don't just look for a place that provides care. Look for a place that preserves your ability to make choices. Ask yourself, what will my daily life look like here? Will I still have control over my schedule? Will I be able to decide how I spend my time? Because it's not just about where you live, it's about how you live. Too often, we assume that, as we age, losing independence is inevitable. But is it really? Or is it just the result of choosing environments that take it away from us? Modern Stoicism reminds us that while we cannot control everything, we can control how we prepare for the future. So I ask you, are you making a choice that aligns with the life you want to live? Or are you simply accepting what seems easiest in the moment? Because once your independence is gone, no amount of regret will bring it back. Let me ask you this. Are you ready to take control of your future, to safeguard your independence before it slips away? If so, take action now. Like this video and comment below, independence is power. Because true strength doesn't come from simply being cared for. It comes from maintaining the ability to make your own choices, no matter your age. Number 4, managing loneliness. Loneliness is an undeniable reality in a nursing home, one that slowly seeps into your days and wraps itself around your thoughts if you don't actively fight against it. At first, I thought it would be easy to stay connected. After all, I had spent my whole life surrounded by loved ones, friends, and colleagues. But as time passed, I realized that maintaining those connections required more effort than I had anticipated. Phone calls became less frequent, messages were left unanswered, and visits became occasional rather than regular. I had to accept that life outside moved forward while I remained in place, no longer part of the daily rhythm of my family's world. This was not out of malice or neglect, but simply the nature of time and priorities shifting. Seneca once wrote, "We are always complaining that our days are few, and acting as though there would be no end of them. The truth is, everyone is busy living their lives, and unless we take action, we risk being left behind in silence." The greatest Stoic secrets teach us that while we cannot control whether others reach out to us, we can control how we respond to solitude. Rather than surrendering to loneliness, I made a conscious choice to engage with those around me. I joined a weekly game night with fellow residents, something that seemed trivial at first but gradually became an anchor. A reminder that companionship can still be found in unexpected places. There was laughter, conversation, and a sense of belonging that I had feared was lost. I started writing letters to old friends, reconnecting with people I hadn't spoken to in years, and in doing so, I rediscovered pieces of myself that had been buried under the weight of isolation. Even something as simple as sharing a meal with others in the common room instead of eating alone in my room made a difference. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." It was in those moments of connection, both with others and with myself, that I began to understand the power of choosing how I perceive my circumstances. In today's world, loneliness is not confined to nursing homes. It exists in the homes of those who live alone, in the hearts of those who feel disconnected despite being surrounded by people, and in the digital conversations that fail to replace real human interaction. If you find yourself feeling isolated, whether due to age, circumstance, or simply the pace of life, take a step toward connection. Call an old friend, join a local club, or engage in a hobby that brings you joy. It is not about waiting for others to reach out, but about taking control of your own happiness. The Stoic secrets remind us that external circumstances do not define us. Our response to them does. You have the power to transform loneliness into an opportunity for growth, reflection, and even new friendships. The silence of isolation does not have to be empty. It can be filled with the richness of self-discovery and meaningful interactions, if only you choose to let it. Number 5. Staying mentally active. Staying mentally active is just as crucial as keeping your body moving, especially when transitioning into a nursing home, where routine can quickly turn into monotony. Before I moved in, my mind was constantly engaged, Whether it was through managing daily responsibilities, reading the morning paper, or even debating ideas with friends, I had things to plan, decisions to make, and small tasks that kept me thinking and problem-solving daily. But once, inside, I found that without deliberate effort, my mental world began to shrink. At first, I welcomed the ease of having everything taken care of for me. No more cooking, no more cleaning, no more worrying about errands or home maintenance. But then I noticed the dulling effect of passivity. With fewer choices to make and less to engage in, I felt a creeping sense of mental stagnation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," and I saw firsthand how a lack of intellectual engagement could lead to a sense of stagnation. The days became repetitive, conversations predictable, and without challenge or stimulation, my mind started to feel sluggish. The nursing home did offer activities, but they often felt superficial, designed more for passing the time than truly engaging the intellect. Bingo games and light exercise classes were pleasant distractions, but did little to truly challenge me. I realized that just as the body weakens without physical exercise, the mind deteriorates without mental effort. And so, I had to remind myself of what modern Stoicism teaches. We must take control of our own minds because no one else will do it for us. If I allowed my mind to become passive, I would be the one suffering from it. Determined to reclaim my mental sharpness, I started seeking ways to stimulate my thinking. I joined a book club, not just to read but to engage in deep discussions, questioning perspectives and debating ideas with others who still had a passion for learning. I picked up puzzles, crosswords, and even started learning a new language, an endeavor that made me feel alive again, as though I were reconnecting with an essential part of myself. One of the best decisions I made was enrolling in a painting class. At first, I was hesitant, thinking, I'm not an artist. But as I held the brush, I realized the joy of learning something new. The process of mixing colors, experimenting with strokes, and expressing myself visually was both meditative and intellectually stimulating. It reminded me that growth is always possible, no matter your age. Seneca wisely said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." And I took that to heart. By challenging myself in new ways, I regained the mental sharpness and enthusiasm I had feared losing. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, a reason to wake up each day with anticipation, rather than just waiting for the next meal or the next scheduled event. You may not be in a nursing home yet, but this lesson applies to all stages of life. If you allow yourself to fall into mental passivity, whether through excessive television, idle routines, or a lack of curiosity, your mind will atrophy just as an unused muscle would. Modern Stoicism reminds us that we are responsible for our inner world, and that includes keeping our minds sharp and engaged, regardless of our circumstances. Don't wait until you feel yourself slipping into boredom or cognitive decline. Act now. Read books that challenge you. Engage in conversations that stretch your thinking, learn a new skill, or pursue a hobby that demands creativity. Surround yourself with people who inspire you. Take up projects that require you to think critically, and never settle for mental laziness. Your intellect is one of the few things in life that you have full control over. Nurture it, challenge it, and never let it wither from disuse. Mental stagnation is not an inevitability of aging. It is a choice. Take ownership of your intellectual growth, and you'll find that life remains full of possibilities no matter where you are. Number 6. The role of physical activity. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself that I would keep up with my physical activity. I had always been a believer in movement, in using my body, in staying strong, and making sure I didn't become dependent before it was necessary. I knew that exercise was the key to maintaining my independence, and I promised myself I wouldn't let it slip. The facility had a small gym, scheduled fitness programs, and even physical therapy sessions. It all seemed reassuring at first, like I had everything I needed to keep myself moving. But the reality was different. When things became easier, when meals were brought to me, when staff members encouraged me to take it easy, when no one expected me to push myself, I found myself doing less. A day off turned into a week, and soon I was sitting more than I was standing. I had joined a daily stretching class in the beginning, which helped me hold on to some mobility, but I quickly realized that a few guided movements weren't enough. What I truly needed was the discipline to push myself beyond what was comfortable. And I lost that discipline when I allowed ease to take the place of effort. I met others who had once been active, like me. There was a man named Richard, a retired firefighter who had spent his life running into burning buildings and saving others. When he first arrived, he walked laps around the courtyard every morning. But then he started skipping a day, then another. Soon, I only saw him in his wheelchair, parked in front of the television, his legs growing weaker by the day. "It's just easier this way," he told me once, and I felt the weight of his words more than I expected. He wasn't incapable. He had just fallen into the same pattern I had. The comfort of inactivity is a trap, and it's one you don't even realize you've fallen into until it's too late. I used to think that the body declines because of age, but I now believe it declines because we stop using it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." The resistance, the effort, the challenge, these are what keep us alive. When we avoid them, when we give in to convenience, we lose not only our strength but our ability to fight for ourselves. So I ask you, are you still moving? Are you still challenging yourself, or are you letting comfort dictate your choices? The truth is, physical activity isn't just about staying fit. It's about maintaining your freedom. Once you give up movement, you start giving up everything else: your confidence, your independence, your ability to make choices for yourself. The Stoic secrets of strength and endurance don't come from luxury or ease, but from discipline and effort. The body is like the mind. If you do not train, it weakens, and once it weakens, you become reliant on others in ways you never expected. If I could go back, I would never let a single day pass without pushing myself to move, to stretch, to walk, even when it was uncomfortable. And you still have time. You can still make the choice to stay strong, to resist the slow decay of comfort, to fight for the independence that movement gives you. Remember, your body is yours to maintain, not to surrender. The true Stoic secrets to aging well aren't found in avoiding struggle, but in embracing it. So get up, move, and keep moving, because once you stop, it's far harder to start again. Number 7. Financial considerations. I never truly understood the financial weight of moving into a nursing home until it was too late. Like many, I assumed that between insurance, government assistance, and my savings, things would work out. But reality hit hard. Nursing home care isn't just expensive, it's a financial commitment that can drain resources faster than expected. Have you thought about what it actually costs? Beyond the monthly fees, there are hidden expenses: medical services, personal care, even simple comforts like having a private room or better meals. It adds up quickly, and if you're not prepared, you may find yourself in a situation where your savings disappear, forcing difficult choices. I wish someone had sat me down and told me to plan ahead, to explore every option: Medicare, Medicaid, long-term care insurance, even personal saving strategies, before making such a life-altering decision. Seneca wisely said, "Wealth is the slave of a wise man, the master of a fool." And I wonder, was I wise enough? Did I let my assumptions about financial security blind me to the reality of my situation? In modern Stoicism, we talk about controlling our perceptions, about preparing for life's challenges, rather than reacting in panic. But can we truly prepare for a financial burden we underestimate? I thought I had control, yet I now realize how much I overlooked. Many people believe that government programs will cover everything, but the truth is, they often don't. There are strict eligibility requirements, coverage limitations, and in some cases, even when assistance is available, it might not be enough to maintain the standard of living you expected. Would you be comfortable losing control over where you live, or how you're cared for just because financial planning was overlooked? I remember sitting down with my bills, watching the numbers pile up, realizing that I should have spoken with a financial advisor before making this decision. It's one thing to think you're prepared, it's another to see your savings disappear, month by month. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." But what if those wants aren't luxuries? What if they're basic needs? Dignified care, a comfortable environment, access to good medical attention. I found myself questioning everything. Did I need to downsize my expectations? Would I be forced to rely on family? Was my financial independence slipping away along with my autonomy? This is why financial planning isn't just about numbers. It's about protecting your dignity, your choices, your freedom. In modern Stoicism, we learn that suffering often comes from avoiding reality. But facing financial truth before it becomes a crisis is an act of wisdom. I ask you, have you considered what your future care might cost? Have you looked into insurance plans? Do you know what government aid truly covers? Or are you assuming, like I did, that things will just work out? I regret not having these conversations sooner, but maybe you still have time to ask yourself the hard questions. Because in the end, financial security isn't just about money. It's about peace of mind. If you've ever faced a situation where finances unexpectedly became a burden beyond your control, share your lesson by commenting, "I take control of my finances" below. Your experience could help others avoid mistakes, plan better, and protect their independence. Don't let financial assumptions decide your future. Join the conversation today. Number 8. Reassessing the decision. When I first moved into the nursing home, I believed I had made the right choice, a logical decision that would provide security, comfort, and the care I needed. But over time, I came to realize that what seemed like a sensible plan on paper did not necessarily align with the evolving needs of my life and my sense of self. Life, as the Stoics remind us, is in constant flux, and clinging too tightly to past decisions without reassessing them can lead to unnecessary suffering. No man ever steps in the same river twice, Heraclitus famously said, and the same is true for our circumstances. They shift, adapt, and sometimes require us to make new choices. Yet so many of us hesitate to do so, fearing the discomfort of change more than the consequences of stagnation. I told myself I had chosen this path for my well-being, but the more time passed, the more I realized that my well-being was tied not just to medical care, but to independence, to a sense of purpose, to the feeling that I still had control over my life. The walls of the nursing home were not necessarily restricting, but the mindset it encouraged was a quiet resignation, a slow detachment from the agency I once had. I had assumed that this move was permanent, that having made my choice, my only task was to accept it. But Seneca cautions us against blind submission. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. I had set my course, yes, but I had failed to check whether it was still leading me where I truly wanted to go. It was only after several months that I began to question my choice. Could there be another way? Could I still reclaim a sense of freedom without sacrificing security? I started looking into independent living facilities, places that provided support but also honored autonomy, and I realized that perhaps I had settled too soon, mistaking necessity for inevitability. The greatest Stoic secrets teach us that nothing is truly fixed, that even when we feel bound by circumstances, we still hold the power to redefine them. Epictetus reminds us that People are not disturbed by things but by the views they take of them, and I had taken the view that my initial decision was final rather than one option among many. When I spoke to my family about the possibility of moving, they were hesitant at first, worried about the logistics, about whether I could manage. But the more I examined my own needs, the clearer it became that my initial fear of making a mistake had led me to overlook what I truly wanted. It is easy to tell ourselves that change is too difficult, that once we have settled into a routine, we should endure it rather than disrupt it. But endurance is not the same as living. If you are in a similar situation, I urge you to ask yourself, are you here because you truly want to be, or because you fear the effort it would take to explore other options? Life is not about making one perfect choice and then resigning yourself to it. It is about constant adjustment, about recognizing when a new path might better serve you. The worst thing you can do is assume that because you made a decision once, it must remain unchanged forever. Circumstances evolve, needs shift, and the person you were when you first made the choice is not necessarily the person you are now. Do not let fear of inconvenience trap you in a life that no longer serves you. The greatest Stoic secrets remind us that control begins within, that while we may not always control what happens to us, we always control how we respond. Reassess, reconsider, and if needed, have the courage to change course. Because staying in a situation that no longer fulfills you is not acceptance, it is surrender. As I reflect on my experience, I realize that moving into a nursing home was more than just a change of environment. It was a shift that deeply impacted my independence, purpose, and dignity. While these facilities offer care, they often take away the very freedoms that make life meaningful. Before making such a life-altering decision, take the time to explore all options, ensuring that you preserve both your well-being and your sense of self. Modern Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, and part of that is making thoughtful choices about our future. If this video resonated with you, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stoic in Your Life for more insights on Stoic secrets and practical wisdom. Turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos. Until next time, stay strong and stay true to yourself.